Meet the intrepid crew of the rogue trader vessel Emperor's Humor 2 as they face the horrors of the warp and void, bravely assembled for their next perilous mission. Lunch!
Hello and welcome to the Munitorum Breakroom podcast, your Munitorum mandated lunch break. This is Beardo, and today I have Death Core of Wrath,
Guten Tag,
TikitheHutt,
Howdy.
and the block that laughs, Laughing Block.
AKA Captain Skinny Penis from.
Oh, we've moved up from DJ to Captain, have we?
Indeed.
Oh no, he's rising in the ranks. So we gotta watch out.
Yep.
And today we're gonna chat about cheating on the tabletop. And I believe that Deathcore has a few stories for us from the recent tales from the table.
Wait, do you mean like cheating while playing a tabletop game, cheating on someone on a tabletop, or cheating on tabletop games with other games?
Or cheating on someone while playing on the tabletop. Now that would be
Yes,
that's
to
for the
all.
Morty and Glory hole.
Yes, and yes to all, man.
Some of those tables are built pretty sturdy.
Yes. Dude,
The
my local
construction
GW
is
used to
nice.
build-
It's high quality material.
Well, there's a few things I actually wanted to mention. Is that one, I don't know why people do tend to cheat in tabletop games, but that's probably the way they want to play the game. So be it. Honestly, if you're gonna play that way, probably not gonna make a lot of friends anyways in the end if you get caught. Anyways, so yeah, there is a certain percentage of people that you actually tend to actually encounter in the tabletop community that actually do tend to cheat, and it's unfortunate that we actually do tend to meet those kind of people in the community. So I figured I got pretty much unlucky to actually meet one of those people since last year. And I did share the story into one of Morty and Gory's live streams, and he actually did brought up a live stream. Well, he did make a live stream about it, which was something that needed to be discussed since 10th edition was actually on the rise of cheating recently, on recent cheating like scandals, that sort of thing. So he decided to make a live stream, and I decided to share my side of view of my experience of encountering a cheater. So cheaters. So the way that I actually had to need it started was that I actually was recently starting to get into like playing tabletop games like Warhammer 40k. That was the first committed hobby that I actually recently got into since before the painting and all that stuff. I'm sorry, I should say before the gaming. I was more into like the building and the converting and painting aspect of Warhammer than I was into the gaming, because this was like during COVID when we actually need to social distance ourselves, and I didn't really have a local area where I could actually, or a local gaming space to actually play with someone during COVID. And I had a little issues with trusting some people actually follow up with standard procedures of making sure we're not getting sick from that specific, COVID virus. Anyways, so I was fairly new to the hobby. I actually did start a Tyranid army, but just after their Tyranid Codex released, a lot of bugs. So there's a little story behind it too. It's because I was like 5 years old. I almost got into the hobby and stuff, and my dad actually was a parent victim, actually, buying a box because they thought they were like fully painted and assembled kind of thing. But when he opened it, it was just a box of sprues with Blockin unbuilt painted models. So
Tyranids,
fell for
if I
that.
remember correctly.
Exactly. Yes. So I almost got into the hobby when I was like 5, but it came out to the point where somehow miraculously the circle came around to the point where I actually have got myself into 40k. Now that I've remembered what faction I actually was really particularly interested into, was the Tyranids or the bugs or the arachnids or what are those things that are called starch troopers? I feel fucking uncultured by saying that now.
You kill anything that's got more than 2 legs, you give me.
Got you, sir. Anyways, I was into that sort of little aspect where it's like humans are fighting like bugs and shit. And I also was like into biology and stuff, where I was like really interested into little small insects, ants in particular, because of the hive colony and stuff. And they're just like being controlled by a queen ant or beehive of some sort, which like, you know, honeybees, for example. So they lured me into that. And I got into it during COVID, and I was trying to social distance myself from actually other people. But then, you know, I've been starting to visit the local GW and stuff. They've been pretty cool people. And if they ever listening to this, just want to say thank you for getting me into this really fantastic hobby, of course. But that's besides the point. Talking about cheating, I did recently came out with someone who actually was somehow an undefeated opponent who played Tau, which is kind of not surprising because there are some stories up behind with the Tau community where they actually have a reputation of having some cheaters that are lured in because they're a cheese army, especially during 9th when their codex actually came out. They actually like had some weapons that can turn off invulns. It was what's it called? So yeah, the guy was undefeated. He somehow had a reputation of actually just like not being able to get tabled and stuff. So I came in to actually play with this guy, and I want to see how it would go at the first match of playing a fun match that is narrative, and see how it went with my Tyranid faction or Tyranid army that actually was that was like basically released the new codex fresh out of the box, 9th edition codex that was completely broken. But I didn't play like one of the most cheesiest fucking meta army lists that you can ever come across. I was just playing like a really casual list anyways.
Reject the meta.
And embrace.
And the Tau players saw their chance.
And the Great Devourer.
And the Tau players decided to jump on that opportunity
Hey, I resemble that remark.
and try and stomp out the bugs.
Like, the guy actually was really nice when I first met him. Like, nice guy, nice person to talk to as well. But the first game I actually did play with him didn't feel like it was much, but I did end up losing the game. It was only because of that one mission that we played where he needs to kill a warlord, and it was like a twist or like a ruse where he needs to actually go ahead and finish up my warlord, and I somehow managed to like leave him like a little bit behind to actually just go ahead and be up in the open spot for him to actually teleport his like one of his battle suits to actually go ahead and come up from behind and shoot off my hive tyrant, wing hive tyrant. So that's what basically happened, but it didn't feel like it was much that happened. But that was the first time I played with him. Really actual genuine nice guy. Figured he seemed legit, I gotta say. But in the end, I was like, all right, well shit, well good game, and you know, hopefully we'll play again another time. And I've been hearing more stories of the fact that he's still been literally undefeated, and he keeps saying, quote unquote, that this shit is like a routine that I come to a game and just somehow just like, you know, play the same list, do that cheesy shit. And I'm like, maybe tone it down, maybe.
Suspect.
Yeah, it was a little bit suspicious. I don't say that.
Beardo, in post, you have to add the Among Us sound effect.
I'm on it.
Yeah, this is the part where we actually have to add the Among Us sound. Good call there, DJ Skinny Dick. Anyways, so
Acceptable.
so about a few months after, it was during winter, probably like around November, I decided to get another game in with him with another Tyranid army list. Actually, it was basically a 1,000-point Storm army with a little bit of monster mashed in too, like Termagants, Carnifex, if I can recall, and some Psychers, which are my Zoanthropes and a Neurothrope. Brought him in, he decided to bring in Chaos Knights, and I figured everything went all right. I figured I would have been able to beat him. I thought at some point I would have been able to use my relic to do all the rerolls, cheeses, and actually just go ahead and try to beat him. And I figured that my swarm would actually cover my Tervagon's ass to get close enough to his medium knight. Sadly, that didn't happen. So initially, I left my bugs in the open. He got the first turn roll off, and at this point, at least to say, I was pretty much in a really bad spot. He shot everything off the table, which is basically the Tervagons, and then went for the last piece to actually just go ahead and shoot off the Tervagon with his medium knight, just like a relic and shit. And it does like a ton of damage. I can't remember with mortal wounds stack upon. I'm just like, yeah, I was completely shocked about it too. But I was completely speechless about it, and I took it off the board, and I just like literally stood there, and my ex at the time actually saw that thing, the whole thing too, and I was like, bro, what the fuck? That shouldn't happen. I think I had my, what's it called? I had my, it's a powerful, well, it's a rule for Tyranids. They actually have imperatives, synaptic imperatives. I actually had my influence on for that battle round, but it's just like, it wasn't just enough to actually keep them alive, fortunately.
You're telling me my invulns aren't working. I'm getting cucked and I'm losing? What the hell is this game?
Oh well.
This is unacceptable!
This is unacceptable!
Man. But yeah, I like had 5-up invulns on my little monsters, our little gribbly bugs, and then I had the 4-up on the monsters and shit because synapse, yada yada. And bam, he actually blew it off the table, and I'm just like, bro, I'm turn 1 too. That's fucked, man. Like, we had enough terrain too, but it was really, really fucky. So everything was wiped off the board. My Carnifex was behind the building, and then he actually had a small knight actually trying to actually go ahead and charge it. But the medium knight was literally right in front of it, and the war dog behind it wasn't able to make the charge. And he somehow thinks that, hey, having a car drive it over up top of another car and actually going through the traffic would actually work somehow. In fucking theory, that it would actually just go ahead and make the charge to my monster, or Carnifex, I should say. I told him that it would not work, but somehow insisted that it would. I couldn't be bothered to actually just go ahead and make the argument here, and I was just like, bro, this is fucking. I just want this game to end.
We're talking about 9th edition, right?
Yeah, it's 9th edition.
Yeah, even your own models, you can't move over. That was a big change in 10th edition, where you can actually move over your own units' models, let alone your opponent still can't do that in 10th. Like, yeah, that's mega cheating right there. You can't do it for a charge. You can't just because basically like models in that scenario are basically treated like terrain in terms of like for measurement. So. Yep. For example, for flying, you'd have to actually with the 10th edition rules, you'd actually have to roll. You actually have to calculate going over the models to get over them. And in 9th, you'd have to go around them. You can't just charge through them. That's not how that shit works. I faced a Space Wolves player at one point that was he. I don't know if he was cheating, but essentially he was very insistent on consolidation rules with his wolves, which I know that's kind of how their rules work, but I wasn't really sure how it worked back then. But this dude got somehow tried to argue with me that he got an extra 6, almost 7 inches out of consolidation, and I'm like, that does not sound right, because you literally just rolled with 2 dice. You just rolled an 8. So you're telling me you can get a 14-inch charge without a +1, that I run a melee army, dude. That doesn't sound right.
No, it doesn't. Honestly. But yeah, that happened. He decided to actually make the charge, and in the end, wiped out my Carnifex, tabled me in the end. I'm just like, dude, this thing in turn 3 tabling is fucking weird, but it's okay. And, you know, it's a really messed up situation, honestly. I honestly do feel like it was kind of wrong. Well, if I get to that point in the end, I might actually we'll have a little talk about it too, but it's a little fucking weird, honestly. We finished our game, packed up the models, and then, you know, we went next door to the bar with a couple of friends that were actually also there, doing the Christmas celebration kind of thing, Secret Santa stuff. I actually wanted to wait for like a few extra couple minutes for them to actually just go ahead and get along, have a little talk, chat with each other. I went next door, Games Workshop again, told them about what had happened, and yeah, I told him that this is a little bit suspicious. And I told him that role that he decided to play out with the charging over the models and stuff really suspicious. So
that's just off. I mean, one,
yeah, it's,
you know,
it was really off. And then we actually had a tournament player that actually went to FaceTime. Oh shit! Please cut off the name. What's her name?
Let's give him a code name. Gotcha.
It basically rhymes after his actual name, but I just want to
Slagathor.
Yeah, Slagathor. Fine. So he actually did faced off, and up to that point, it was just like he was playing Drukari too. And they were really strong too back in 9th edition too. So I don't know. It was like he was playing narrative, but the fact that they were both playing a narrative crusade game, he took a really hard list against him. And he legitimately says, I refuse to play with him. Because he called him out of the real fools. Yeah, exactly. He definitely knows that he is actually cheating himself. And it's an impulsive behavior. And I wish at some point that there would be an intervention about this. Because he's actually in my local Discord server right now. But he's been looking for a game for a while. But I told everyone about the situation. He's not gotten that game at this point. And the only games or matches that he actually ever gets was from me.
And that's how you keep yourself out of the hobby.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like I'm happy to play anyone once. Like I said, that's why when you're done their story, I'll tell my cheating story. The first game of Bullsex ever played, and it was against the guy that completely cheated. You know, I didn't really realize until later. But like I said, I was happy to play the guy. I'll never play him again, but you know, I'll always play somebody at least once. You know, but there's no guarantee for another game. I'll give everybody one shot.
So yeah, it was. Man, I'm also looking forward to actually listening to your cheat story as well, Tiki. We'll get into that. Hopefully, I quickly, you know, everything wrapped up. But you know, it's like, fuck, man. Shouldn't be doing this a lot, honestly. So. I've been also hearing stories about the fact that he also curbed on legitimately a kid in turn 2, and the store manager actually had to pull him out to the side, telling him that you shouldn't be doing that. You're supposed to introduce him to a hobby. It's legitimately a game where you just like legit let him have fun. Make sure he actually has some turns to actually use his models. It's not that hard.
It's being like what people would call a gaming Chad, but it's not even that. I mean, dude, we're guardians of the hobby, and it's all of our responsibility to make sure that we don't like just squash the hobby out of somebody in their first couple of games. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what drives that kind of person, one, to cheat like that, and two, to just, you know, win at all costs no matter what the situation is. I don't get it. I mean, if you're playing a tournament, that's one thing. But I don't know, man. I don't get it.
Yeah. I don't either, man. There's sometimes I actually do want to talk to him, but you know, it's just like I don't think he ever does want to face his little inner demon himself.
He can't face his demons.
Exactly.
So I have to live with them.
Exactly.
Crawling in my skin.
These wounds they will not heal.
But I'll tell you some 2 satisfactory stories about it in the end. It's just like fucking hell, dude. Those stories that I actually did end up like playing him the 3rd time actually was the fact that I decided to face him one last time with the Tyranids post nerf with the army against his Tau. Yeah, he did kind of struggle with trying to score points, but my defensive abilities couldn't do much anymore after his shooting. And then my Turvagon was trying to charge the Storm Surge, but he decided to use a stratagem. He decided not to actually go ahead and give me some intent of what he was going to do. Instead, he actually pulled a gotcha.
Ugh, see, that's what I hate that in 40k, man. That gotcha stuff.
It's called Repulsor Impact Shield. So I rolled an 8 to charge, and it was literally 6 inches away from the Storm Surge. So it would have been able enough to actually go ahead and charge that Storm Surge. But he told me it would half the charge roll. So I failed it, right? So I went back home to check that stratagem and only subtracts 2 the charge, and I would have been able to make that charge and fucking kill that Storm Surge.
Oh, that's not a gotcha. That's just a straight up cheat. No, I'm about to say
he straight up cheated and fucking gotcha me.
Oh yeah, that's
like,
why
I didn't know.
I've gotten stratagems. You know? I've gotten stratagems mixed up, but that's like, nah, that's intentional.
I'm gonna put the gas mask on. So what I didn't really realize is that my fucking room is getting a little bit toxic after all this shit that I have to think about. So I didn't know about that stratagem, but after that, the deny stratagem phase, I was like, seriously, you could have fucking told me about that. And then actually lying to me about the charge roll, instead of actually having to subtract 2, you told me it was half the charge roll? Fuck off, dude. Seriously. I even told him that too, in person. Like, why'd you do realize it was like, subtract 2, not half the charge. I'm just letting you know that, bud. And he was like, okay, fine. Fucking hell, dude. A lot of my friends know about this guy, but
fun fact about me, my first game of 40k ever was against Tau with my guard, and I won. I will take that shit to my grave.
Man.
That's why I'm always like, look, man, if you know your army, if you have some weird rules that sound almost too good to be true, so bring documentation. I said when I got into my guy, he kept saying like, oh, I don't think they do that. I'm like, look, I'm new, but I do know this because it's my main army's rule, and I read it like 50 times on the way over here. I have it right here. Oh, that sounds too powerful. I'm like, oh, well, contact Warlord Games. They're all the way in England, so you might want to wait for time to call.
Also, you might be proud of me here, Tiki. That game, also, I had my Scions jumping. I had my Scions jumping out of my I think I was running it as a Valkyrie as a tank because I didn't know it was a Vendetta. I had my Scions jumping out of my Valkyrie onto the enemy, and that's what won me the game was the Scion like back lines like parachute, we're jumping, boys.
Oh yeah, like the people forget about that. Then you grab shoot in some boys. It's like, haha, spoiler alert. Yeah, I miss my tanks, all Valks and Vendettas and Vulture, man. Some people hated it. Some people were like, oh, because they would expect you to bring tanks. And when you bring that, like, then you can tell they visibly got upset. It's like, that's why you don't list build.
They're like tanks, but they fly? What?
Yeah, that's like the number 1 rule why you should never, list build. Someone says you're bringing guards, so you bring a bunch of anti-tank stuff. I'm like, that's what you get. I was like, I told you. I even tell people, like, it's Imperial Navy, do with that information as you will. That's kind
of like the state of Guard in 10th. Is they're like out of all of the armies right now, they're in a really good spot because they're like the Swiss Army knife of out of all of the armies right now, because they have so many usable models, that so many of their data sheets are usable, that there's so many ways to run Guard. You can't prepare for Guard, like, because they can bring so much. There's so many strategies that they can employ, like even way more than Marines, despite Marines having the larger model count. Like Guard just have like right now has a very well internally balanced codex, like borrowing like a couple outliers. Like most of the codex is pretty well balanced, actually. Oh, excuse me, index, because we're not going to get our codex for like 3 fucking years.
So here's my question about the tournament scene. Wouldn't it be kind of cool if you couldn't see what somebody was bringing? Like when you file, it either goes under Imperium, Xenos, or Chaos. Now it could be anything within one of those branches, but it doesn't show what your army is. That way people can't, list build ahead of time. It's like, oh, I'm going up against Custodians my first round. I'm like, how do people know that? Like, how is that even fair to see what you're going up against? It should just be show up there and pack at the table, and then you get to, like when you show up there, when you're at the table, then you get to see the list. It's like,
because
cool.
at least for tournaments, as far as I'm aware, the opponent is also aware of what like you're bringing, and your lists are locked in, basically. Like, so
right, and I get your list being locked in, but like I said, I think when it put it up there, it shouldn't show what your army is. It should literally just say Imperium, Chaos, or Xenos.
Oh, I misunderstood you. Yeah, I agree with you.
Getting back into that topic, actually, what's it called? The cheating topic, I mean. So, yeah, I was really disappointed about that, but then when I get back home in the end, I found out about the actual rule of having an actually subtract 2 from that Repactor Impact Shield denying charge roll thing. I still won that game. It was only by points, but he still tabled me in the end by fucking how he actually wanted to play the game. But I saw him shaking afterwards because, I don't know, it was really cutthroat. But, hey, gonna do. I had this, like, really, really, really unsatisfactory mindset. Like, really, really impulsive mindset, like, unsatisfaction with the game because I actually want to fucking table him so bad. Out to the point I just wanted to do it for the local players and the friends that actually did play with him against him months back. So I decided to hold back on playing tonight. Exactly. Yeah.
You're like the edgy Batman from the new Batman movie, just going, Who the hell are you? Yeah, and he just goes, I'm vengeance. And then in the trailer, it just kicks straight to the kick-ass like muscle car Batmobile.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much the epitome of myself, actually. But anyways, let's not get into that point. Yeah, it was like around mid-December, I decided to start collecting guard afterwards. I was like, hey, I saw this channel. I actually watched them before, like years, even during when I was starting building my Tyranids. I actually wanted to collect guard myself, but I was like, okay, hopefully I have some money on this side to actually do so myself, He did like a pure infantry guard list he took to a tournament. I was like, fuck, man, I want to know how this guy does it. I probably would do it with the Tyranids as well if I ever do start a channel myself, but hey, it's probably the best time right now. I just gotta make sure I get myself all caught up with the backlogs of the projects. So I started watching him. Obviously, it's Morty and Glory, guys. Can't tell.
Hey, Morty and Glory.
Sign up to his OnlyFans called the Morty and Glory Ho. All right.
Of course, where you can get all the feet pics you could ever desire. Feet pics.
Yeah. With a little hairy ankle there onto the side, yes. All right. So I picked up Acadia Stan's box and then the last Start Collecting box. And then I had a friend of mine, which I actually did mention before we actually started the podcast. He also gave me another Start Collecting box and a few secondhand models that I got for free. I was also going to buy it from someone, but I just went ham on building and painting the damn models, for God's sakes. Like, I fucking love the guard. I'm trying to think of the quote from Aliens, man.
God is a day on the farm. Every paycheck of fortune. Every meal of bounty.
How do I get out of this chicken shit outfit?
Game over, man. Game over.
She's a kid.
What are we gonna do now?
Oh, heck, man. Why don't you put her in charge?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Xenos can't green machine.
Fun fact about that quote, I think that is in a Hollywood movie, like the first mainstream like reference to a video game. That quote, actually.
Really?
Like game over, man. Like I think that is the first one in. I think that's a somewhat well-known trivia fact. Like, which is really, when you think about it, that makes sense. But God, that is weird when you think about it too.
Every formation's a damn parade. I love the guard. Yeah, but guard actually fits in right for me. Hits me right back home because I was actually a really big history buff myself, and I actually had a YouTube channel that actually started off that was based on World War history, like both World Wars at least, say. And I was already having a blast after playing a few games with them. I still had to paint a few of them before I actually had entered a RGT for the list I'd taken. But what's it called? I decided to actually play with again, but this time I would actually smash him with the guard with the new codex. So he decided to take Dark Eldar with the 1500 point match. But I actually got a few heads up with the Drukhari. So I had a friend that actually works at GW, and he gave me a few heads up on the stratagems that Justin would definitely outplay me, and a few things that are in that codex as well. So Archon usually has an ability, what's called a 2-up invulnerable save ability, and Fracture Shield, I believe. Might be, but so what that does is that it gives you a 2-up invulnerable save, but if one of those fails, you cannot do a reroll with that fail save. When that save is failed, you cannot use that ability anymore. So what he said right off the bat, that he could actually just reroll one of the failed saves. No. Yes.
Heresy.
And then, man, I was like, I got you right there, buddy. Now you're fucked. But I didn't really care anyways, because I actually had like 2 Vanquishers that would turn off invulnerable saves, right? So I was like, I'm fine, man. I also got 100 Gatling cannons that fucking would mess up his like.
I got into a debate with and I still actually don't know. I couldn't find a definitive answer. If any of you guys can help me out, that would be awesome. But I played against a Death Watch player, against my Titan, and their core army rules lets them get full rerolls, but like separate from Oath of Moment. I don't think you can stack rerolls, right? Like you can't re-roll like a failed hit roll and then re-roll it again. Like that's not how that works.
You can't do that.
Yeah, that's why I thought I would have won that game against the Death Watch player then, because there's no way they would have whittled down my Titan. Like,
yeah, you can't reroll.
I didn't think so, but like that, like. He was very insistent, and I just like, he was a new player. I was like his 3rd game, I guess. So like, I was willing to let stuff fly. But in retrospect, there's a lot of stuff about that game that like very coincidental. You know what I mean? Like, but
yes,
all of the rules were all in his favor. Was the thing that makes me like. We might have a future.
That's why.
But he's new, so I'm not. So I'm not So I wasn't like too insistent on it. Like I was like, okay, it's whatever. We're playing a casual game. It doesn't matter. Like I don't really care. And I almost won that game too. Anyway, despite everything, so I really don't care that much.
I mean, even as
but another thing is he had a Vindicar assassin, and he actually got close to my Lord Solar because he wanted to kill it, and he shot with the and I didn't realize till after the fact, I forgot, but he shot with the pistol and the rifle. When you're using a pistol weapon, you have to select the pistol weapon. Yeah. Like you can't shoot both. And I realized that after the fact.
You gotta select it.
Yeah. I forgot about that in the moment because pistol weapons like almost like don't really come up with for me that often because it's been a while since I played my White Scars. So like so I thought that like I didn't really think about it. But in retrospect, like along with that and like the dude kept rolling 6s. Like I mean like I've never seen that many 6s in my life. Like kind of amount of 6s. And when I offered like quickly, like I handed him my dice to roll at one point during the game. He didn't take my dice. He specifically went out of his way like nope, I'm good, and used one of his. That makes me think that he might be a cheater, to be honest. And which he was a nice guy, so like I would be really disappointed if that was the case. And it was a fun game, but like for being a new player, he was pretty sweaty. You know what you know what I mean? You kind of get the feel like.
Yeah, but some people come into a hobby already at the sweat level. It could be any hobby. Like I said, I've even seen it in paintball. They're like, yeah, man, hey, come out to the field, it'll be fun. And they already show up with like this ag gear and, you know, stuff's already modded out. I was like, what is wrong with you? Like, you should be, you know, digging in the mud with like an old school Tipman 98, like at the entry level before you start going all like high speed, you know, as a sweat. But no, some people just go right into that sweat curve.
But with all those things like put together is what me, which I don't know for certain, but like it leads me to believe that he might be a cheater. Like, I don't know for certain though, but like, I don't know. Like I've seen like, and I'm usually don't get angry about like a lot of sixes, but I mean like when he rolled sixes, I mean like for the first round, he rolled like almost nothing but sixes. Like as a and he was running like with guns with rapid fire. So it's not like he was running a Marine shooting army. Like, and he like, I think he only missed like 7 shots. Kind of like out of like, he probably shot like 60 shots. And to top it off with his damage rolls, like for the Vindicar Assassin, he rolled a 6 on the damage. For his laser destructor on I can't remember exactly what the name, it's like the Laz laser destructor or whatever on the Gladiator, he rolled a 6 on a 5 and a 6 on the damage. Like, that's a little weird. You know what I mean? Like that's
a big what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. All of that stuff compounded in the same game. Like I've never seen that many sixes.
If I was rolling hot,
rolled.
if I was rolling a bunch of 6s and someone made that joke like, hey man, why don't you roll my dice? You're like, yeah, right? I'm like, this is crazy. You know, I wouldn't be offended. I'd roll any dice because, you know, I'm not packing loaded dice. It's one of those things where I'm like, I can see that I keep rolling 6s and I didn't even feel bad. Like, I'm sorry, man, it's just the dice. Like, I guess I'm just on a hot roll. So it's like, hey, why don't we change dice? I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? You know? I find it weird that they'd be defensive about not switching dice.
Well, it was just for one. It was just for one roll, and the roll, and that's another thing. So we rolled for both, you know, going first and like who was on the offense and who was on the defense. He rolled a 6 both times. Like
that's so statistically unlikely.
Yeah. And then he rolled a 6 for the damage for his Vindicar Assassin. And then the next time he shot with it and finally landed, he got a 5. For like...
Has he ever rolled a 1?
I think he rolled like 3 1s in the entire game.
Motherfucker! Like, holy shit!
Yeah, I'm not kidding. I've never seen that. And he was going with full rerolls too, doubled over. So like he in the first battle round, he shot my Titan and he did 22 wounds to it. That fucker has a 4-up invuln and a 2-up save.
I need to check with my Titans. Fuck it.
I swear to God, if you roll a 6.
All right, so let me take you down to Tiki Town.
The Emperor protects. I fucking 2.
Take me to Tiki Town.
It gets even worse. It gets even worse.
All right, so here's my story. I had been away from 40K. I left in 8th, came back in 9th a little bit to try the narrative. No one played it, so I was like, fine, whatever. So I left Tabletop Wargaming and I came back. This is not that long ago. I mean, I'm talking, this is maybe 6 months ago. I went to go play my first bolt action game. Now it was all the way in a big city that's kind of far from me. It's at least a 2-hour drive and it's a rough road to drive on. Like, it's not a fun road. But I was like, hey, no problem, I'll be there. And the guy was like, really gonna drive all the way out for that? I was like, yeah, of course, you know. When I get there, I meet one of the coolest dudes ever. I'm still friends with him. He does a really good job of like selling stuff. He sells, you know, commissions, custom printed models. His partner sells all sorts of cool like resin, custom dice towers, anything you could want, they sell. They're a really cool team. So I'm chatting with them, and all these people are starting showing, and then this one guy kind of shows up, and I notice no one's really talking to that guy. You know, that should be, you know, red flag number 1. By the time this starts, there's more red flags than like Beijing and a tank parade. I mean, it's pretty bad, but bear with me. All right, so I'm excited. So I get there early. I'm talking to everybody, talking everyone's ear off. So apparently there's a tournament the next month. So what this is this is basically practice for that tournament. So they have a rule like, hey, please don't take pictures of any of our armories or any of our lists. That way people don't know we have ahead of time. I was like, okay. So I guess it's like my state versus another state. I don't know. So I'm sitting there, I was like, well, I'm new and I only have 500 points worth of models. I don't have the 12, the 1225 or the 1250. So let me not hold anybody up. I was like, I'll wait till the end. And then anyone who has left over, you know, I'll play. So there's one guy who's like, well, I'll play you. And I was like, okay. I was like, aren't you going to practice for tournaments? He's like, no, I don't play tournaments. All right. So that's red flag number 2. I should have paid attention to, but fine, whatever. Now we all know I play Conflict 47 and not Bolt Action. So I didn't have a physical Bolt Action book. And I said that I was like, hey, I have the book on my phone, my Kindle I've been reading. It's like the only physical book I have is Conflict 47. So I'll have to borrow a rule book because I haven't gotten like an actual full-size rule book for Bolt Action yet. Usually I'm not a fan of playing the games I don't have a book for. It's like, oh, I don't have a book either, but we'll be fine. It's red flag number 3. All right, so I bust out my 500 points of Imperial Japanese, and I tell him, I was like, okay, well, would you like to see my list? He's like, no, I don't need to. I was like, okay, what are you gonna play? He's like, I'm gonna play Marines. It's like, all right, man. I was like, it's 500 points. It's like, I know. I was like, okay, cool. You know, so I started getting out my models. So just a heads up, I took a Type 97 Chiha Kaishinto. So it's the upgraded version. I won't get too specific. It basically has a medium anti-tank gun, a medium machine gun on the hull, and a medium machine gun at the back of the turret. That comes into play later. I took 2 infantry squads. Sergeant has an SMG, one dude has a machine gun. I took 1 light mortar team and an officer and his adjutant. They both had some machine guns. Very standard list, nothing crazy, right? So this dude bust out with, I think, a medium mortar and a whole bunch of just Marine. They're all veterans. They're hard to kill. They're all packing SMGs and BARs. Like, this is going to be a brutal fight. So, you know, I talked to him. We roll for what kind of rules we want. Something really easy. We're still in like pair drop packages in the middle of the map. We have to move to the middle of the maps. So I started playing. I started talking to this guy. I was like, hey, this is my first game. I haven't, played Bolt Action yet. I come from Warhammer 40K. I'm really excited. He started telling me all this other kind of stuff. He's also a fellow veteran, which I thought was cool. He showed me a model he made off his grandfather, which I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of neat. Seemed like a cool dude in the beginning. Now, as the game goes on, we're playing slowly. I'm learning the rules. I'm asking lots of questions. And I'm not saying I'm good at wargaming because I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but tactics are tactics, man. It doesn't matter if you're playing a Warhammer 40K or you're actually like moving real forces real world. Like, a tactic is a tactic. Like, some stuff just makes sense and it's pretty damn universal, especially when it comes to like World War II stuff. So, I started moving my models up, and he moves one of the models into a house, and my light mortar ends up hitting him. And he's like, okay, well, it doesn't do much damage. Like, really? I was like, I thought high explosive does something to people in the building. He's like, oh, that's not really a rule. I was like, oh, well, do you mind if we look it up? Because I'm new. And he gives me like this kind of like weird look. He's like, fine, we'll ask somebody. I was like, well, you have the rule book right there. I was like, let's just look at the rule book. He's like, that's not in there. And so whenever I heard that, he's like, yeah, dude, HE's really dangerous to people in buildings. Yeah, it's an automatic hit. I was like, what the shit? So that's red flag number. I've lost count how many now. So we keep playing, and then I speed my tank up on one of his flanks. And he makes the comment about, he's like, well, I wish I knew you brought a tank. I would have bought more AT. I was like, well, I offered for you to look at my list. I was like, but you told me you didn't need to look at my list. Like, well, you still should have told me you brought a tank. He's like, people generally don't bring tanks in a 500-point match. I was like, well, it's a Japanese tank. They're very small. It doesn't cost much. But he was real salty about that. Like I said, as the game went on more and more, and it looked like he was losing the match. So at first we were tied, and then I was positioned to start winning. He started getting very, very upset. To where like he'd want to argue every single point. Another good example is I had my infantry on the side of a building, including my machine gunner. And the cool thing about bolt action is you cannot pre-measure your shots. You get to declare what you're doing before you do it, including move. You can't. There's no pre-measuring. So he said he wanted to move his Marines. It's like, okay. So it was my turn. I had my guys, it's a kind of like a standby mode. And so as soon as they moved, they could shoot. And so I shot him with a machine gun. He's like, no, I want to take that back. I was like, I don't think there's any take backs. He's like, really, you're not going to let me take that back? I was like, no, because I'm trying to learn how to play this game. So I want to learn how to play by the rules, if that's all right. He's like, well, clearly I wouldn't have moved my guys there if I knew you had a machine gun. He's like, I can't even tell which one of those guys has a machine gun. I was like, no. I pointed out which one of my guys has machine guns. Like, they have special stuff on their helmets. I pointed out all my models ahead of time. I was like, no, man, I'm not going to let you take that move back. He's like, oh, it's bullshit. I was like, well, buddy, I don't know. That's when I was starting to get a little annoyed. I was like, I don't know what to tell you, man. And I was like, this whole time, I was like, we've been playing friendly. We've been trying to play by the rules. And also this whole time after that, when he started rolling, his rolls got a lot better. I'm talking, he started making all his movements. His shots started hitting almost every single time. And the difference is he would roll behind cover. And so I kind of asked him, he's like, all right, yeah, I got 4 hits. I was like, hey, can I see this real quick? He's like, I already picked him up. I was like, hey man, do you mind rolling out in the open? That way I can see, what kind of goes for a hit. And I was like, can you slow it down? Because he would just roll 3 times. He's like, yeah, I hit 6 of your guys. I was like, well, hold on, man. What weapons hit? At what distance? And he would just get really do I have to explain this? Like, yeah, I would like to learn, how the Marine Corps plays, because it's gonna be my main adversary. So long story short, we get down to the very end, and we were absolutely on a tie. And when you come at the end of like the 5th turn, you're supposed to roll to see if you get more turns. And this is the worst part where he cheats, because I brought my tank in, which he forgot about, and I spun my turn around, so I had 2 machine guns, and I started just hosing down his guys. And he freaked out. He's like, oh, you can't do that. I was like, yes, I can. He's like, no, you don't have enough crew. I was like, all right, here's my book. I was like, I do have the right amount of crew. I am able to operate both machine guns. So I machine gun down his crew and shoot him off the objective. And next turn, I could walk onto that objective and take it, So next turn I do that. So now we're basically even. And I can move my tank onto his objective and basically nullify it. I can't take it, but neither can his infantry. And what he does basically, I was like, all right, is everything good? He's like, yeah. He stuck out his hand. I was like, okay. He's like, okay, cool. We shook. The game's over. I was like, did we have another turn? He's like, man, we already shook. I started picking up my models. So this dude knew it was my first game. Just cheated right out the gate, fast rolling, hiding dice rolls, not showing rules, not showing dice rolls or anything, getting super frustrated when he stopped winning. And then at the very end, he pulled that hoodwink. We're like, I already shook your hand and picked up my models. It's already over. And wanted it to stay at a tie instead of moving up to a loss for a game that didn't even count.
That's just gross.
Fucking disgusting.
First game, and everyone knew I drew 2 hours to be there. I was like, you got to be kidding. Now, in his defense, he said, like, when I tried to talk to him, he's like, well, I didn't enjoy the game once you weren't nice about me having that take back. I was like, I'm sorry, man, it's my first game. And I even said him ahead of time, I was like, hey, it's my first game. I was like, if I make any mistakes, please do call me out. Don't let me get away with anything, because I need to learn. And he did that. He called me out every time I made a mistake. He's like, you can't move your tank like that. You have to move it and then turn. I was like, oh, awesome, thank you. He's like, do you want to take it back? I was like, no, I wasted that turn. That tank's out of position. And I made it a point to point that out. I was like, no, I made a mistake and I burned for it. That's how I learned. So when he made a mistake, I was like, no way, man, there's no takebacks.
Man.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pre-established thing that you're playing a hard game because you need to learn. Yeah,
bolt action is hard too. There is no pre-measuring. So I said, it's kind of a big deal. That's why when he made that roll thing, he was like, well, if I knew that guy was a machine gun, I wouldn't have moved my infantry. I was like, I don't know what to tell you. The guy is sitting there with a machine gun in his hand. Like, there's no mistaking what's a machine gun, what's not a machine gun.
Can't pre-measure in bolt action, hey?
No, and that's why I love it. So, and since then, I now have a dice tray that I bring, and I also have a really cool Tiki dice tower that I use, because I'm never doing that again. If someone's not willing to roll in the dice tray, then it's not going to be a game I'm ready to play, because it's just a small thing to ask. It's not like doing the whole safety rule or X card. It's like, hey, do you mind just rolling in the dice tray? That way we don't knock over the terrain or knock over our models or anything like that. It's such a simple thing to ask, but I feel like that knocked out so much cheating.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Now, I guess from all the stories of cheating, the question for me is, how do we as tabletop players, how do we handle that? Like, what process do we need to go through to make it harder, one, and make it less attractive, two, for people to cheat like that?
I don't think you'll be able to get rid of that psyche, but just like how Beth was talking about, the best thing to do is just let people know, like everybody in that room knew that dude cheated. That's why no one played him. As soon as he finished with me, he packed up and left because nobody else was going to play him that day. I kind of wish someone would have told me that ahead of time, you know? Like, it would have been cool, like, hey, watch out, he's kind of an asshole and he cheats. I still would have played him, but it would have been cool to have that knowledge ahead of time. But that's all you could do. Just be like, hey, you know, if you want to play that guy, that's fine. He plays weird. He could cheat. Maybe he does it. We've never proven it, but, you know, good luck. Just let people know ahead of time. If someone still wants to play them, let them play them. Well, because what about that guy? What about that guy with the shit dice at Element? Like, can't you literally just put up his picture and be like, hey, this guy has been caught cheating at the store, play against him at your own will? You know, just leave that picture up there like a wall of shame.
Yep, exactly. So,
forgiveness is for the weak.
Yeah, I mean, so we need to, I guess as players, we need to identify people that cheat, one, call them out, and, you know, I mean, new players are generally the target for that because they don't know, you know, and I guess it's on us as not new players, as guardians of the hobby, to keep an eye out for somebody like that. And, you know, if you got a new kid coming in and you see the local shark coming across, so yeah, I'll play you. And take that, you know, take the new guy aside and say, hey, listen, I mean, do you have your rule book with you? Do you have a dice tray? You know, this guy's had a little bit of a history of, you know, crushing newbies. He's not necessarily the greatest guy to play with, whatever. Be prepared and, you know, ask to see proof of his rules and all this stuff. Or
he preys on the weak.
Yeah, I mean, well, and honestly, though, one of the good things that GW has done, I know, taboo, good thing, GW, wow, with the rules being in the app. Now, granted, you have to pay for it, but still, I mean, it's not that much. You can look at the other army's rules and say, hey, that's not right. You have access to all the different rules. There's no way to say, oh, well, for somebody to say, I didn't bring a codex or whatever, and then make up rules.
Another reason the core rules and like weapon profiles and unit abilities should be available for free.
Yeah, I mean, and you can make one army list for free on the app, so you can still access all the rules. As far as it goes now, I'm not sure what they're going to do.
I know it sounds jerky, but like, I don't want to encourage like a witch hunt. You know, obviously, kind of hilarious in the idea of 40K with the witch hunters, but I wouldn't say a witch hunt against people who are cheating. But honestly, just hold people to a standard. Like I said, they already do that. They already do that with painted models and stuff like that. Just hold them to a standard with, you know, I'm sure we'll talk about this later about appropriate attire and appropriate behavior and stuff like that. But same thing, be like, hey man, did you come to play in the tournament or did you come to play in a game? Yeah, hey cool. Do you have dice? Do you need to borrow any dice? No, I got dice. You got models? Yeah. Do you have a, you know, do you have your ruler or whatever device you're using, your tape measure? Yeah. Do you have your rules for your army? Oh no. I'm like, oh man, that's all right. That's okay. Hey, no worries. And then honestly, just don't play them. Just don't cave. Be like, oh, you don't have your rules? Unless you have a backup rulebook for them, just don't play them. Just hold them to that standard. Be like, do you have, I don't care if they're printed out. I don't care if they're on your phone. Just some way that you can show that you have the rules to your army. Because if they're not willing to even take that small step, then there's no way you can expect them to behave on the tabletop. Because what you're doing is you're already admitting defeat. You're already giving up that ground. And as you can see, when we're all gentlemen, they just keep taking that ground. That's why, like in my example, is a little bit different because I saw that coming. Again, I played in 7th. God, do I remember the cheaters in 7th? You know, I'm not going to play that game. When that guy's like, oh, I'm going to move my model back. Like, the hell you are? No, you're not. That dude's about to eat a machine gun sandwich. I don't know what to tell you. You shouldn't move your guy out in the open like that. Like, that's a bad tactical maneuver. You know, you don't give up that ground. You hold their feet to the fire. That's what you have to. It's uncomfortable, you know. And I'm not saying be mean to the people, but you have to know when to stand your ground. It is wargaming after all. It's not like hug gaming. So, you know, just set the rules ahead of time. Be like, do you bring your rules? No. Did you print them out? No. Can you bring them up on your phone? You know, just don't play them. If they're not willing to supply their own rules, they're not willing to play.
Yeah, I mean it's not like it's that hard to pull up your rules. There's places to access rules online super easy. So if they're not willing to make a Google search, then you know that something's up. Like there's a reason why you're not bringing your rules. Either that or you're just criminally lazy.
Well, like I said, it's something we see as a common ground between all these cheating stories, and that's the first thing I think you should hold them to. If you're willing to bring all these models that cost money, even if you 3D print them and paint them, then you should be willing to bring the rules for them. It seems like such a nonchalant. It's like saying, I'm not bringing dice. I'm just I have a really good head. I'm just gonna roll randomly in my head. It's cool. Oh, hey, what do you know? It's 6. Like, nah, get the fuck out of here.
So, to make a little list of the red flags for new gamers to look for, number 1, you got everything you need to play. Like you guys, make sure that you, one, and your opponent both have your rules or access to the rules, and then make sure that your opponent is willing to show you those rules. Number 2, make sure that you're rolling in the open where you can both see, and that goes for you rolling and them rolling. I mean, what else have we got? What other red flags have we run across?
People fast rolling. Like I said, people rolling and saying like, okay, this hits, okay, you lose 2 people. Especially if it's your first game, tell them that ahead of time. Be like, hey, if you don't mind playing slow, walk me baby steps through all of this stuff. That's why I kind of like being new, because it's my excuse to call people out. Be like, slow that down. Do your first roll. Yeah, do your first roll first. Okay, that hits. Okay, now we'll roll to wounds. Like you gotta. I feel bad, but like if you don't set that precedent ahead of time, and then they cheat on you later on, they're still to blame because they cheated, but you also gave them that room to maneuver. It's kind of like when you get outflanked on the tabletop. Yeah, you got outflanked, but you also left that flank open. Like it's the same thing.
You done did it to yourself there, brother.
Another advice I would actually have to give out is the fact that, if there's anyone in your local area that somehow has like this undefeated, reputation in a local store when, you're playing against that guy, well, just be careful.
Ask questions.
Ask a few questions about this guy. Like, what army does it play? Does he, how is he like, as a person, and, see how he comes off as, as a player.
Another good idea would be like give yourself your own session 0. Like, that these guys are going to be playing X day. Well, you don't play, you just go and say, oh, well, I'm new to the game. I wanted to just kind of watch a few games, see how these armies play and that kind of thing, and observe. And then you can, make a little bit of conversation with the players. Of course, be polite, don't interrupt. And, if it's not their turn or whatever, then you talk and whatnot. But, it's part of the gentleman's agreement that you let the people that are actively playing get on with it. But that way you can kind of get a feel for your local meta, which reject the meta, embrace the guard. But you can get an idea of, okay, this guy, this guy's fast rolling, or this guy's not got his rules, or somebody might, a hobby Chad might come up to you and say, hey, listen, when you do come and hang out and play, because we want you to come and hang out and play, be careful of XYZ. And it falls to us to be that guy that's, when the new kid comes in and wants to watch and all that, you tell them, hey, listen, when you do come and play, make sure you got your stuff, look out for fast rolling, give them the red flags to look for, give them the tools for success rather than leaving them out in the cold for some shark to come up.
Agreed.
If you do end up finding someone that actually you caught him cheating, I'd say just leave immediately.
Yeah, pack up your mind and say, hey, listen, we're playing in good faith. You're not playing in good faith. I'm not going to play.
Yep. I actually did that when I was doing a toast battle report with him. And it was the very last time I'm actually ever going to be playing with him. I do tease him a lot at times to actually, let's get a game again. But obviously I'm going to cut it off. But Did
So you
test
should
battle report with
totally
him.
play a videoed battle report with this guy, and like secret
did.
cameras.
I did. I fucking did. I actually had everything recorded. He was
Alright,
running
did you-
10th edition.
Did you get him to sign a waiver then?
I did not. And he still had the audacity to actually go and cheat.
No, what I would say is like, you know, tell him, oh well, do the whole testing thing again, and say, hey, you know, I might use a little bit of this as B-roll. So just to cover bases, would you mind signing this little thing saying that you consent to be on camera, and
Yeah.
then let him cheat. Let him cheat. Beat his ass, of course, and then we could post it on the channel. Of,
Give him hell, buckaroo.
this is what you're looking for, newbies. This is cheating. Almost to catch a predator, but with tabletop gaming.
Honestly, I think that would be the last time I'll be playing playing with him, because I was doing it. I was like a little bit rusty with a little, you know,
I don't blame you.
the A-roll stuff, but I also do a little stuff with, you know, the introduction of the game, how we're going to play it, how it's going to be a little beginner stuff. Well, he took a lot of battle suits, man. I swear to God, he actually took a Forge World fucking...
The
Arvana.
Yavara or the Arvana?
The Arvana. It's not really great into tabletop, but, you know, it's a really cool looking model and shit, but...
That's a beautiful model.
Yeah, that dude was
You
pissed.
guys-
That dude was pissed when I put it in a tank. He's like, oh, I didn't bring any anti-tank. I was like, sucks to suck, man. I was like, I offered you to look at my list and you said no. I was like, all right.
Don't get me wrong, he did painted them really well. I mean, he's really, you know, kind of a little art, like a little hobbyist as well himself, but playing with him in tabletop, nah, man, sorry, can't do it. Can't be
Yeah, I
bothered.
don't blame you. Lesson learned, don't play with dumbasses. You can't fix stupid.
Yeah, pretty much, man. It's like, it's an
That
impulse.
should be
It's
the
a
general
really
life
bad
philosophy.
impulse. Exactly. So, sadly to say, it might be an impulse, because when we actually did the recording for the battle report, he did tend to actually start, you know, pulling off some really, really cheaty rolls, like the 4-up field pains in the battle suits. He could stack the saves for his battle suits kind of thing. I don't know, fucking weird shit. And then, if I can remember, drones are usually tokens now, unless they're like a shield drone, then they count as an extra wound. He allocates those wounds to those fucking drones.
Yeah, that's 9th edition. That's not 10th. Yeah, all drones are tokens. They may have effect on the model, but they're not a model themselves unless it's a tactical drone unit, which why would anybody take a tac drone unit?
Yeah. So, yeah. He decided to use those drones as like extra wins to counter some of the guard shooting. So I'm just like,
Yeah, so he was trying to use savior protocols, the rule. I think it's a strat at 9th. I didn't play in 9th, but as the Tau guy, I just love the battle suits. You know, I'm not a cheater. I'm not smart enough to cheat. I'm not a good liar. I'm not good at, you know, making it look like I need the rules. I depend on them. I have them on my phone. I'll have them printed out with my army list and everything that they do, because I'm not going to remember. So the Ogren brain kicks in.
yeah, that's the one thing I actually did want to bring up too, is the fact that he didn't bring up his physical rules. Also, that is another red flag that Tiki would always pull up, and it is true. I had this out in the open for him to actually go ahead and check the rules. It's always best to actually, main reason why I actually did buy this is because our codex is not going to be out for the next few years. Fucking great, right? Yeah, I did get I did get some shit from a friend of mine, same guy that gave me the Start Collecting box, and I was also like a cheesy fucking power play sweat lord 40k player.
Sweat Lord, I love it.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably stuck in Tabletop Simulator right now at this point, so good on him playing with those sweats. But besides that point, I mean, he's still having fun. But yeah, I usually have rules up in front just in case if they need to check it out. go for it. I usually get 99% of them right. I don't need to actually like check it every time. I actually just read it out, study them, and I should be fine. But if they need to double check it, it's all here.
Oh, everyone hop on. I guess it's on.
What are you talking about? We gonna fly somewhere?
I think so. Down to the hangar deck.
Nah, not us, buddy. Our plane's broke. We ain't doing shit.
Nah, maintenance fixed it overnight.
Ah, shit. Let's go break it again. Where's that Ogren? Hey, Bonehead. Smash.
All right, boss.
Thank you guys for watching the Munitorum Breakroom podcast. Please like, subscribe for more fun nonsense and us just chatting about whatever.